what's going to happen if this doesn't work out? And I said, it's okay if it doesn't work out. I'm okay with that. I'm just not going to be, my work ethic is not going to be the reason that happens. Like,
Leo here, your host of the Building Bellingham podcast, and thanks for stopping by the studio. Pour a glass of whiskey or local beer, take a sip, kick those feet up. We're going to dive into what it means to be a business owner, what it means to be a member of this Bellingham and Whatcom County community, and what it means to find peace and balance while running a badass, high-octane, local, iconic business. Let's jump in. Emile Diffley, first of all, super excited to have you here in the studio. And we're talking about your story, and we're talking about what it means to be an entrepreneur. It's really easy, I'm sure, and there's no stress involved.
Never.
And there's no failure. There's no success. It's just a nice, easy coasting ride, isn't it?
It's a simple life.
Simple life. Yeah, you probably sleep a lot too.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Plenty of sleep. I kind of do whatever I want with my time.
Yeah. Oh,
it's easy flowing.
You get to do whatever you want with your
Unlimited
time.
vacation.
Unlimited vacation.
The benefits are just unreal.
Benefits, yes.
It's unmatched.
Bennies. Can't have too many bennies, you know? So tell me a little bit more about you, where you're from, who you are. What's in Emile's head? What does Emile do on a daily basis as a human?
Wow, good question. Well, thanks for having me. First off, excited to be here. I was born here. I grew up on Lummi Island until I was a teenager. Family moved to Bellingham. I went to Bellingham High School, graduated, stayed around, worked for a little while, and then I pieced out and I moved to California, Southern California specifically. And over the course of 4 years, I lived there part-time. I lived in Australia for a year. I was fortunate to travel quite a bit. I worked a summer in Alaska. So I kind of bounced around. And then, as many people do, they all come back to Bellingham because it's just a perfect place for a lot of reasons. And when I was working in Australia, that's when I kind of decided, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to open a cafe. And I wanted to move back to California, where I thought that's where cafe innovation is. That's where it's a great learning opportunity. There's a lot of cool and amazing things happening with food and beverage there. So I went back to California with the intention of an education, a working education. And when I thought the time was right, I came back to Bellingham to open a spot.
Simple. That's it. It's done. And here you are today. So I want to jump back a little bit, because you get the spectrum within the business owner and entrepreneurial world, which is the person that has this formal business education, or this person that has had whatever formal education, and you have the person that just really loves something and is really passionate about something. Where do you fall in that spectrum? I mean, how did you decide that you wanted to have a cafe and you wanted it to be in Bellingham?
I've always been entrepreneurial. I remember when I was in high school, I was flipping iPods and bikes and cars, and I remember selling like little creations I'd made at the farmer's market when I was a kid. And when I lived in California, I tried to start this like t-shirt company out of my van, and just always had a drive to be on the entrepreneurial side of things. And then when I started working in restaurants, I was just like immediately fell in love with the hustle and the flow and the grind and the customer service and the product and the operations. And it just really felt at home. That just kind of kept building.
Yeah.
The more restaurants I worked in, the more I would see different ways people were doing different things and seeing how problems were addressed. And then I took the opportunity to work every single position, dishwashing, cooking, baristing, managing, private events, ordering, like every opportunity I had, I jumped on being able to figure that out, even down to when the maintenance people came in, I'm going to ask them, I'm going to work with them. How are you fixing this dishwasher? I want to know this so that I'm more prepared and I'm ready to go. It's always been part of who I am, the entrepreneurial side, and the restaurant side just came in through experience of working in it and diving deeper.
What's your favorite part?
Good question.
Of the whole process?
Yeah. I am borderline obsessed with operational smoothness. That's my MO. A lot of people come to me and oh, I didn't know you like to cook, or how do you come up with these menus? And I do that, but it's a small fraction of my day-to-day and my vision. I'm all about efficiencies. I really like to work with the staff to try and create improvements, always trying to make things a little bit better, even 2%, just a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner, a little bit higher quality. I think delivering an experience to a customer, a paying customer, is a extremely rewarding feeling.
Because that person, the goal is not that they're passing through and it's obviously you want some people a lot of people that are coming through Bellingham to stop here, but a lot of your business is likely repeat customers. And so it's like, how do you create that experience that is different? Because it's not like there's not a lot of restaurants in Bellingham or cafe. I mean, there's nothing like your business. I will say that, but there are other coffee shops. There's smoothie places. There's breakfast places. How do you differentiate yourself? How did you create this environment where it was different?
I think one part of coming back to Bellingham and wanting to open here was taking elements that I've seen in larger cities and different parts of the world we don't necessarily have here. And a big part of that is like trying to create an environment that is sleek and is modern and feels like you're at a restaurant, but is also really comfortable and inviting, and it's casual, and you can come in with a t-shirt, you can come with a suit, and you still feel very comfortable, and the staff are engaging and they give you the time of day. And I think we have really great coffee shops here that people go to work at, and you walk in and everyone's got their head down, and that's great. That's its own thing. And we have restaurants that are full service, and you might feel inclined to dress up to go out to. But I think what Banter is trying to do is to create a hybrid of those things in an all day environment that people just feel really comfortable in. And for me, my goal is to focus on those little details within that. And so when I walk into the restaurant, the first things I notice are lighting, or music, or like, has this table been wiped off? Is this person's water full? Like, how can we figure out all the touch points that a customer is going to interact with our bathroom, and make those things just extra special and just very intentional with the space and the product that we deliver.
That's amazing. And that's why it's successful. And that's why people love it. Tell me a little bit more about scale and how that plays into that, because I know you guys have expanded and you've moved and you've landed in this awesome location over on Prospect. And tell me about that journey, because you and I have kind of talked in passing about it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that journey, because every business owner goes through phases, I'm sure, of okay, bigger could be better, or different location could be better, or let's just double down on this location. Or tell me about your process, because you guys started right over by the Mount Baker Theater, kind of kitty corner to that, and then you moved over to Prospect. Tell me a little bit more about that whole journey from initiation. We found a spot in Bellingham to this expansion to this, like, really doubling down on this great location.
It has been an absolute roller coaster, as I'm sure many entrepreneurs go through. I'm not alone in that. And especially in the past few years, just the world at large has gone through that. When you grow, you have to take into consideration a lot of things. First, I think, is like, why do you even want to grow? Is it scale is going to help the business achieve something? Is it a personal endeavor? Is it you're trying to solve a problem? The space is too small, or like, if we can scale this, we can order from a different producer at larger volume, or whatever it is. So I think for me, it was a lot of personal drive, and that was, as a young entrepreneur, I started the business when I was 23 and really started working on it when I was 21 and 22. Was like, I just wanted to put my head down and push as hard as I could, and I was going to jump on every opportunity we got. So not the first location that came up, but there was the first location we were in, which was on Commercial Street, just sort of popped up, and I said, I'm ready. I want to go.
Yep.
Excited, ambitious, and I don't regret that at all. It was a good place to start, but it was small, and it came with a lot of limitations, specifically the kitchen. It's too small for the end vision that we wanted. I ended up purchasing a restaurant in the middle of COVID, which was Fairhaven Pizza in Fairhaven. And that was also I think I was excited about taking on more and pushing myself and pushing the limits of what the business was capable of. And I learned a lot. I think, looking back, I tried to grow faster than I was ready to. And it didn't fail. It worked out. But it reached a point where it was just, I'd lost sight of the little details I just talked about. It was too hard to manage multiple locations. And at that point, we had 3 locations. And the little details were being lost, and staffing just became an absolute nightmare. And the 3 buildings we were in were old and had mechanical and plumbing issues. And it was just a lot all at once. And it just felt like time to recollect ourselves and focus back in on what we do best. And then we'll we'll grow from there again. But we need to find a home base again to restart, and that's kind of where we're at now is dialing in our one location, and in the future, if we want to grow from there, I think we'll be more prepared to do so. But just maybe with, I look at the last 5 years and I think like that was my business education.
Yeah.
Like I learned so much by trying to grow and trying to scale, and we could have gone forth with it. And I think, tackled that problem when they came up, but felt like the right decision to scale back and to recenter and then start again. And that's where we're at.
That's incredible, because not everyone has that introspection to, you have this ambitious part of you. You have this part that is constantly pushing you. Do you feel like that side of you is the athlete? Is because you do play soccer, and obviously we didn't get to cross paths at United, because I was one of the old dogs that played kind of first couple of years, and you were playing, the last, was it 3 or 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
And tell me a little bit more about athletics and how that primes your mindset to push yourself, but also has taught you to like this phase 2, which is like, okay, recenter, reground.
Sure. I was an athlete and still am, or at least I like to consider myself one. Maybe a novice, but trying to be. And I would say first and foremost that my foundation and experience with being active has helped me just be better at working at a restaurant. Like it's an extremely physically demanding job, and it's all day, and like I can keep up. And some people I tire out and they burn out, but I do think that having had pushed through a lot of athletic feats in my life, like helps just with general endurance. So that's a big thing that maybe people overlook. Yeah, scaling back's a humbling experience. I think that a big thing when you go to start a business, you have to be confident that this is going to work, or else there's no reason to do it. But you also have to be humble enough to say, if this fails, like, I'm okay. I'm going to land on my feet. I'm confident in myself that I can make ends meet. You take a lot of risk, but it's calculated risk. And I think that you have to be humble and you have to be self-aware of how am I going to come away from this. And so I can push forward with something, and if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be okay.
You're at peace with it.
Yeah. It's just, I'm not overly attached to my ego and the fact that like I am, the person that's in charge of the destiny of this. Like I can sit here and say, if Banter doesn't work out, I know what I did wrong. It was a learning experience, and I'm going to move forward, but I'm not going to dwell on it. And that's how I feel about how we've scaled back in the recent years. Like we're moving forward still. It may not seem like we're moving forward because we're scaling down, but we are.
That is moving forward, though, and
we're certainly going in the right direction.
I think that's Emile. That's phase 2 of Emile's brain saying, the scaling back is moving forward, because a lot of the times you have to pull the bow back to launch it, right? And so, totally. You brought up something about betting on yourself and being the humility of knowing when you're not good, or when something doesn't work out, it's okay. You can bet on yourself to just show up and do the work. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I find myself encountering a lot of people with a mindset that the last person that they're willing to bet on is themselves, right? Which is, to me, bizarre. If you don't have the skill, you can go get it, or you can learn it, right? Or you just know what you're good at and what you're not good at. But tell me a little bit more about, as a 21-year-old and then 23 when you started the business, who did you learn that from? Parents? Who did you learn that from to say, yeah, I can bet on myself, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out?
When I was in my early 20s, I'm an old dog now, 28.
Wow.
I know.
Wow, look at you. There. Look at you. Look at all those gray hairs.
They're coming.
Look at you go. Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time independently. I traveled a lot. I worked a lot, again, in all different parts of the States and the world. And I learned how to be independent and how to support myself. And I learned how to work. Ultimately, I worked construction for a while. I worked on a farm. I worked, like I said, in Alaska on a boat. I worked in a lot of restaurants, like big weeks. I remember working in California. I would wake up at 6. I would run to the cafe where I worked. We opened at 6:30. I would work all day. I would go for a swim at like 4 when I was off. And then I would go to this restaurant at 5 and work from 5 to 2 a.m. and then wake up and do it again. Like it was gnarly. But like I learned how to push through, and I learned to love it. And I remember when I opened the restaurant, a friend asked me like, what's going to happen if this doesn't work out? And I said, it's okay if it doesn't work out. I'm okay with that. I'm just not going to be, my work ethic is not going to be a reason that happens. Like when things come up, I'm strong enough to push through, and I know that I can. And that's kind of the same ethos I have today. I've been able to take a step back from the day-to-day operations, which is nice. And my schedule's a little more flexible, but when things come up, like I'm ready to
I still see you there a
hammer
lot.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regularly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always going to be demanding, and I'm prepared to take that on.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, at some point you go, okay, business or demand has reached a certain point and I have this amount of bandwidth, even if I'm able to push really harder than the average person, whatever that may be. And you said, okay, I need to hire.
For us, it's a big, it's hard to staff. Bellingham, as great of a city as it is, and as great of restaurants we have, we don't have a huge core hospitality community. It's not a career-minded thing. When I worked in other cities, that's a thing. People are career cooks. They're career dishwashers. They're in hospitality because they want to grow. They want to be ambitious in it. They love it. And we have that here too, but it's a little sparse.
Mm-hmm.
My goal with Banter is to encourage people who don't want to work crazy hours and who do not want to make this their job or their career, still enjoy the process of it and still feel like they have a direct effect on what we're doing with the business. And so when we put people in any position, but specifically management positions, we try and encourage, like, this does not need to be in just an insane amount of pressure or responsibility. Like, you can show up and you can have fun, and we're going to work together on this. And I'm here as your support system for whatever you need. And there's a balance of that autonomy and what they're capable of and what I feel like I need to step in and take on. And so currently we're restructuring our management a little bit. And I'm kind of dialing on what my role is and what I want to delegate. Throughout that process, it's just about we're a team-oriented staff here, and like we're all working towards the same goal, including myself. And there's not really a hierarchical structure. People have their delegated responsibilities, and as long as they're taken care of, you can still have a lot of fun in this job. And it doesn't need to be this insanely high pressure system.
So in your experience with all these previous restaurants that you'd worked in, were you're taking all this in, this is your ramp up. What did you see that you really liked? What were some examples of some stuff in those restaurants, some elements that you really liked and that you saw as inefficiencies? Because I know that's important to you, that created, like, what were some things that you've pulled from your previous world to create this pinnacle experience for a customer?
The establishments I've worked at, there's a common theme of employees being unhappy. It's like restaurant has high turnover for a reason. It's because people are not always treated well. It's because they're not given the time of day. They're not given opportunity. It's dirty sometimes. It's just like there's nothing smooth about it. It's janky. It's always, if it's really busy, it's just like you're getting hit hard all the time. And that's never any fun. So again, what I have seen in restaurants is more like problems that I've tried to solve. And a big part of that is creating an employee experience that is a good one and promotes people staying around and promotes their well-being and their work-life balance. And beyond that, just from a product standpoint, there's some incredibly innovative and amazing things happening with food all over the world and in Bellingham too. But when you work in big cities, that's a big part of it, is people are really pushing the limits. And for me, I think I learned a lot of those things that are pushing the limits and tried to balance them with Bellingham's approach to eating out, which is people want to go out and try something new, but they want it to be familiar. They don't want to be pushed too far outside of their comfort zone.
No sushi burritos here.
No yet. Sushi burritos, not yet. It'll happen.
It'll happen.
We're getting there.
That's an experience.
Oh yeah,
and a weird one, and an interesting one.
Yeah. Good sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think it's trying to solve the problems that are inherent to restaurants, and a big part of that is just not being places where there's much of a team vision. It's top down, and that's the classic, TV chef who's just screaming, and like it's very one-sided, and that creates turnover, and that creates no one cares about the product
and TV shows,
and it creates TV shows, which is the positive.
Which is what we want. We want to see people throw tomatoes in the kitchen. That's what America wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what I've or take what I've learned that hasn't worked and what has worked, and just kind of bring that all together. And it's not perfect, there are problems inherent to restaurants that I haven't been able to solve yet, and we'll see what happens there. But it's a hard industry to fight through, and people, want cheap food.
Yeah.
They want things to be cheaper than ultimately they cost to make.
But they want good organic farm to table food too.
And
they want local coffee too, and they want it to be cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I think we're in an industry where the pricing doesn't line up with the cost of creating something special. I think you can do it cheap, but it's going to be a cheap product at the end too. So always learning, always improving.
You went to Australia and you said you there was an experience in cafes and in LA too. LA, right?
Yep.
What was that experience like? We have a lot of good coffee shops here. We've got, like I said, there's all of the elements that you guys have in your business, but they're separate, and there's lots of good places here. How did you say, well, Bellingham wants to be comfortable, but they're also willing to try new things as long as they can fall back on the comfortable thing, right? That's a mass generalization. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying that. So for those of you that are listening, I'm not saying that you're comfortable. No, I'm just kidding. What did you bring in from these other places? Because you could have started up another coffee shop and you have great coffee. You could have started up a smoothie shop. You could have started up a brunch shop, and you could have started up a cocktail bar. But you decided, you found this mix of all of those. Did you see some other business structures in LA and in Australia that were like that?
And I worked at some places just like that, and a lot of things we do are original, and a lot of them are just inspired by things that I've taken from, or that staff have taken from other places they've gone. And I think that the cafe model and culture in Australia, and it's moving into Los Angeles, is one that people, it's part of their lifestyle. It's not a place that they go to work. It's not a place that they go to eat. It's a place that they go to experience their life with other people, and with the person behind the counter. That's huge. You build that relationship with the person behind the counter, and like I said before, you can come in and you can be well fed, and you can walk out feeling better. And you can walk out and you can go for a bike ride. You can go to the beach. You can, or go back to work. And it fits into people's lifestyles better than a transactional experience of getting my coffee and asking for the Wi-Fi password. It's it goes way beyond that into more of an interaction and just creating more of a holistic experience for someone.
What is your Wi-Fi password, by the way?
I can't say that.
Okay, fine.
On air.
Just thought I'd throw it out to the world in case they were wondering. But one thing that's really cool though is I've noticed, and this happened a lot during COVID, where there was kind of a time limit set on how long people could be there. And it's not to say rush by any means. It doesn't feel rushed, but you guys do have a suggested time limit that people stay there. It's a smaller space, plenty of space, but in order to have the right experience, but also keep, things kind of moving, people not camping out, doing homework or whatever they're doing. How did you determine that? How did you land on that? And correct me if I'm off base on the policy of how you guys operate.
No, you're absolutely right. We have a 60-minute time limit on Wi-Fi and a 90-minute time limit on tables. And we have a small space. It's like you said, it's not too small to where you feel cramped at all, but it's small enough to where it's intimate. And we want a vibe in there. We want energy. We don't turn the music way down. We want people to come in for socializing. We want people to have, they're coming on a date, or there's a group of people out for a brunch after a wedding, or we want more energy and more social interactions. And that's where the name Banter comes from. We want it to be a place where people go to chat with each other. And there are plenty of places in Bellingham to go work, and kudos to them. I got nothing against that. And we're just trying something different. We're the place where you don't go to work. We're the place where you go to have, a social outing. And that's part of being open all day too, is, dinner just naturally leads into more socializing. People are done with their work day. It's time to, decompress a little bit and have a little more fun. And so that's another reason why we want to be there all day for everyone and offer that experience. We do offer Wi-Fi. That's something. And there are times when people come and they want to sit one person in a booth that holds 6, and they want to sit there all day and they want an outlet, and we're going to balance that a little bit. That's why we have the time limit. It's sort of like the food, where we want it to be familiar and people feel comfortable, but we want to push the limits a little bit.
People need their Wi-Fi these days, and you have to accommodate it a little bit. But I would almost go as far to say that I would love a place to go where my phone didn't work.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And then I can't look at it. And then I
Right.
can just sit there and spend time with, my wife and my baby or friends, or just that environment that you're trying to create. Cause do you feel like we're kind of veering off from the social interaction and the in-person social experience? Even if like you and I are sitting across the table from each other, you and I would be talking, but it's not uncommon where you go into a restaurant and you see like a couple that with their heads down on their phones, and maybe it's the menu. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt because the electronic menus, but probably they're on social media, or they're just not interacting. And I see that so much these days. So do you see that a lot where you go?
Yeah, all the time. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing. People are gonna, are happy in those types of situations as well. I think that our job as a restaurant is to offer an experience that people are going to come in and feel lively and feel taken care of. And I think that starts with how our employees interact with you at the counter. Is we try and kind of encourage more of a social dynamic, and we check on you at the table. It's casual. You can kind of take care of yourself. You get yourself water, but we're also going to come out there and we're going to make sure you're okay. And we're going to do what we can to make sure that you are taken care of and feel like you're in a social environment.
One of the things that I've noticed about the way that you market is it is in complete alignment with the experience that you get when you walk in. And that's rare. So much of what I've seen with marketing is that they're presenting the secretary, like the person that is the best version of yourself, right? And it's so in line with the experience that you get when you go in there. Let's talk a little bit about marketing and what's your perception on social media being a big component of that, word of mouth obviously being a big component of that. What's your, like, how have you guys marketed and grown the marketing to attract that target person that you want to come in?
I do most of our marketing efforts. We have some people that help out with some graphic design work from time to time. And my goal is everything that we do is done with quality. So when we talk about social media, like the only photos that we post are professionally taken photos. It needs to breed quality into every single aspect that we do. And exactly what you said, someone sees a photo and that's the exact same experience that they're going to get when they come in and dine. In terms of word of mouth, that is Bellingham in a nutshell. Like for any restaurant, that's the main thing. And so we just have to focus on consistency. Like that is the biggest thing. I hear all the time, including myself, when I go out, you have a really great experience one time, you go to that same place and you don't have a very good experience. And it's hard to achieve that because you've got different personalities cooking at different times, and it's busy, slow, problems come up. It is hard to achieve consistency, but we really hammer down on that and try and ensure that every single person that comes through has the same high quality experience, and what they see online matches that. And when they tell their friends, their friend comes in and has that same experience. So we don't do a ton in terms of marketing in a traditional way. I think it's more just like really hammering down on consistency and giving people the best experience possible, and it naturally spreads. We have a lot of people coming in, especially in the past 6 months or so, from Canada, from traveling here out of state over the summer. There's a lot of events in Bellingham, huge pushes of traffic from those things. And so that's what we're going to build off of, is they come in and it's their first experience. And when they come back to Bellingham, they're coming to Banter again, and they're telling their friends when they go to Bellingham, they're coming. And so we really push consistency and try and make sure that whatever we put out encourages the highest quality possible.
And that every piece of bacon is a 1/4 inch, which your bacon in that chef's breakfast, it's one of my favorites. Yeah. So word of mouth being really important. Another thing that comes the double-edged sword of word of mouth is that you've got people out there, you've got this horrible thing. I mean, this great thing called Yelp, which, again, I'm saying that, Emile's not saying that, but restaurants, what I've noticed, like I don't use Yelp, I use Google typically to look at, reviews and just look at pictures. What has it been like for you? Because I'm sure there's been a couple tomato throwers, because they're always there. And my business, our business, is built on reviews, and online reviews is how someone from Canada might find you. Tell me a little bit about like other people's opinions. Like you're running this tight ship, you have this vision of how it's going to happen. It's not perfect, it cannot be perfect, but it can be pretty damn good. And then you have somebody that had an off day that says X, Y, and Z. And I've looked at the reviews, and the reviews are awesome. It's just, there are people out there that are unhappy and will never be happy. What's your experience with those people, those Yelp Elite 19 gold member, platinum elite members?
Yeah, look, I think with reviews, we make mistakes. People make mistakes. There are times when we, give the wrong item to the wrong person.
Or too thin of bacon.
Yeah. For example. And those ones, mistakes we want to make right. Like, people, they're paying customers. It's not the cheapest place to go eat. We recognize that. I will 100% of the time, if we hear something, whether it's in person or online, negative feedback, we'll try and make it right. Or refund that person, or tell them, hey, this was a genuine mistake. Like, come back in, try this out again. Let's make sure you're taken care of. And then the other half of it is, some of them are just false. Like, they had a massive, they made a mistake. They didn't read the menu at all. They're like even reviewing the wrong location, like different restaurant. It's just, you can't fight them all. I think the ones that you can make right, you do. And then in the positive ones, like, we reinforce that. I always try and message back to people that leave a positive review. Like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate that. I'm stoked to see you again next time you're in town for your matcha. Like, thank you.
Or if it's, in my case, it's like 3 days a week.
Yeah,
for my matcha, my peanut bowl.
Yeah, and then the feedback that's consistent.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that seriously? Say, okay, this is a problem that maybe I didn't see, but from a customer perspective, that's what people are experiencing, and we're going to try and solve that problem. Yeah, some people are just out there to pick a fight, and that's not fun. And we try and make it right, and we just sort of move on.
I'm going to butcher this, but I think the saying is, the customer is always right. And there's a second part to it, which is the full quote. Tiffany, I'm looking at Tiffany right now. Is it in regards to experience or opinion?
No, the customer is always right in matters of taste. This color's good on me. I'm shopping for a coat, I want a blue one.
So for the record, the customer is always right in regards to taste, not in policy. How do you feel about that? The full quote, the real quote. People are like, oh, the customer is always right. And you're like, well, the customer is not always right. However,
one thing that and staff have this question a lot, like, hey, this is, it happens more in person, of this person came up and they had this issue, and how do you want us to deal with this? And I 100% of the time, like, just make sure that they walk out of here feeling heard and feeling taken care of. We'll give them free food. We will refund them. We will give them, we have Banter coins, which are just little wood discs that
like
are
Bitcoins, worth as much as Bitcoin.
Worth as much as Bitcoin. They're eligible. They're the same value as a free drink, coffee or cocktail at night. So, use those to solve problems. And when they come back, we're going to try and give them a better experience. I also say, we're not going to be for everyone. If we tried to do everything, we just would fail. We would be very average. And you see that a lot. Places, they try and do too much and it just becomes mediocre. And for us, it's like, we're doing a very intentional thing and we're doing it really well. And the people that like us are going to love us. And the people that are looking for fried chicken and we don't have it, like, that's fine that they don't dine here. They'll go find that elsewhere. And so it's a balance of, like, trying to make people happy, but also recognizing this is what we do and we're leaning into it and we're somewhat niche, and we're going to find the customer base that likes us, and we're going to really make them love it.
And that's one thing that's really interesting too, is because, and we're going to get into this whole conversation around age, because you're a young entrepreneur. I'm a young entrepreneur. I've felt the uplift of other people going, hell yeah, awesome, good for you. You're getting after it at a young age. We don't really think of it as age. We just think of it as where we're at in this point of life and the capacity and bandwidth we have, right? We don't even think about space and time, but we're just going, right? But you also get the other people that go, yeah, Emile, this restaurant's awesome, but there's this level of trust, I think, and this could be a generational thing, where there's a level of trust with a younger or older seasoned entrepreneur in any business, right? But when you walk in your restaurant, you see people of all ages, which is really cool. How have you pushed against that sort of stigma of being a young entrepreneur with a vibrant business that has a lot of the comforts that Bellingham likes specifically, but also pushing the limit on a lot of different, unique dishes that you have. How have you experienced, like, what's been your experience being a young entrepreneur as you've, had those conversations with potential customers or, repeat customers?
Yeah, it's interesting being young for a lot of reasons. And like I said, I'm getting old now, so times have changed. But
was that your knee that just cracked?
I think
Or is
so.
it your toe? Is your toe?
Yeah, that's
Emile has a toe injury and will unfortunately not be playing soccer at this moment.
It's all right. I'll be back out there soon. Just education over the counter, and really try and enforce that. Is when people seem questionable about a dish or they don't know what ingredients are, encouraging staff to have a conversation. Like, you might not like this because of this, or you're really going to like this, or just, trust us. This is what this is made from. Trying to be transparent and familiarize people with the product. I think that for me, when I started, I worked, this is, I guess, 4 years ago, worked every single day behind the counter and met a lot of regulars that way. And as I've slowly stepped back, I think I've kind of taken myself out of the equation. And I don't know if people necessarily think of Banter as like a young, driven place. I think it's modern for sure, but it's comfortable enough to where all ages can walk in the door and feel, it can feel inviting. And again, we're not here for everyone. When people walk in and maybe they are from a different generation and accustomed to a different style of service, or
if they want fried chicken pizza or something,
yeah,
they're not going to probably get that there.
Yeah, so we want to offer a good experience when someone comes in, but if they decide it's not for them, that's totally fine. We're okay losing that customer base who's not our target.
So let's shift to the aesthetics. Let's shift to the menu. We talk about, you being the operations guy, operations minded person involved in the business as the owner. How did you pick the aesthetics? How did you pick the menu? Because those are it's kind of a broad question. It has two big topics on it, but how did you design it? What was your vision? What was your vision of the menu?
When I go out in Bellingham, there's a lot of great places, but the general theme is feeling kind of in this mellow, subdued, maybe dimly lit vibe. And for me, I've always just personally liked brighter, airier spaces. They're more inspiring to me. They kind of just invigorate me, and they're a bit more, they make me want to go outside. They make me want to be more social. So the space is intentionally curated to promote that. We don't want it to be dark and scary. We want to,
unless it's on Halloween, maybe
a
little
it's coming up.
Scary. Yeah.
We'll see. Red lights.
Yeah.
But it's taking elements from other places in the world. Again, like, that's a common theme here. It's just trying to take what I've seen, what I've enjoyed, and bring them back here. And so we just built this new patio, and we're really excited about it. And that kind of has the same thing. There's a lot of patios in Bellingham, but they're not the most comfortable. They're in the middle of a street. Like, that's not everyone has the opportunity that we have, which is in a private parking lot, which is cool. But we wanted to build something that has those same elements of comfortability, and it's got natural elements, and it's got tables that feel like I'm not just on a street in the middle of downtown Bellingham. So that's kind of design. And in terms of menu is tough, because so many times people are like, you should put this on the menu. Have you thought about this? Like, oh, I had this. It's so much more involved than that.
You should put fried chicken pizza on the menu.
Fried chicken pizza.
Damn it, that thing again.
Especially being open all day, we do operate a different morning and evening menu, and that takes up a lot of storage. Just space alone is a hard thing to work around. And the other thing is, can you have a menu item that 10 different people can cook consistently all the time and be trained on? Or is it too finicky? Is there too many touch points to where, like, something can fall off or be forgotten, and that makes a big difference? And then sourcing, like, how are we able to even source the products that we want to put on the menu? And are they cost effective? And are they at the quality that we want? So there's a lot of intention that goes into our menus, and most of it has to do with the back end process of creating it. We do look at reports. I look at reports all the time of, like, what's selling, what's not, what's customer feedback on this, Are people, consistently adding on avocado to this dish? Like, how do we want to make the menus? How do we want to present menus to customers, and what do we want to take off and what do we want to lean into that's selling and not? But the bigger half of that is deciding, okay, this is a good idea. Can we make it? Can we make it well? Can we make it consistent? Can we store it? Can we prep it with freshness and accuracy? Is there a distributor that's going to bring it to us 3 times a week, or we only have access to it once a month? It's like there's a lot that goes in there. Always looking for new menu items. Always encouraging staff to have input. I don't eat out a lot, but when I do, I try and try new things. And our menus are definitely, I use the word globally inspired. They take elements from a lot of different cuisines. We're not really specific to one set thing. And our menus will always be evolving and always changing. And we just not afraid to try new things. If they don't work, we'll pull them and we'll try something else. And I think we've found a really good medium right now of where things sell well and they're consistent and they're high quality, and we just want to keep leaning into that.
What's the top seller? I have to know. What is the most ordered dish on your menu?
If you've never been to Banter, you may have heard out in the world that we're famous for a breakfast burrito.
It's delicious.
And that is the number one seller by a long shot. Like, crushes every other report. And it's good. It's a great burrito. It's something that the staff have become very, very accustomed and comfortable to making. And so it is consistent, and it kind of has a really nice balance of being filling, but not like making you feel gross after eating it. And it's delicious, but it's also very familiar. You can eat it to go. You can have it for here, and it's still a good experience. And so the burrito is a killer. And it's funny, when I started, I thought that it was just going to be like, I'm just going to throw this on because it's people are going to want like a simple option. If they're first time in, or they're not really looking for like a culinary experience, like we'll just have that.
Give the people what they want.
But it's at one point when we were in the first location we opened at, such a small kitchen that we were selling so much food that we just had to take everything off the menu and just sell burritos for like 6 months. We're like, we can't keep up with anything else, and burritos are so commonly ordered. That's just like all we're gonna do. We're just gonna like hammer those things out. It came in like a little production kitchen. It was kind of fun. And then that was soon after we changed locations and have been able to open the menu again.
So our listeners can drool. What's in that burrito?
Well, Leo, that's a bit of a secret.
Oh, okay. Well, there's contents in the burrito, and there will be a little blurb at the end where we will show you how you can get one.
No, I'm happy to tell you.
Tortillas, maybe.
Tortillas.
Yeah.
That's the outside.
Surprise.
And the big thing about tortillas is it's not a, revelation here. But once you make a burrito, you got to toast your tortilla. You got to put it on the griddle or a pan or whatever you have at home. You need, like, the tortilla is good because it's soft and it's chewy, but you also need multi-textured food.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to crisp up the outside a little bit. So I think that's one thing that differentiates our burrito. It's a very simple thing, but it needs to be done for all you burrito lovers out there. It's got mozzarella cheese. It's got scrambled eggs. It's got tater tots, which are tossed in a garlic seasoning that people really love. It's got salsa that we make. It's a pico de gallo and kidney beans. It's kind of got the best of both worlds of the typical beans in a burrito and also salsa in a burrito. It has avocado, which is just a must for a breakfast burrito, in my opinion. And it has a chipotle lime aioli, which is the real star of the show. And the burrito's kind of changed build over the years, but the chipotle aioli is the one thing that has stuck through because that's what brings it all together. I think one thing people really like about the burrito as well is it's modifiable. You can get it vegan, you can get it dairy-free, you can add bacon, you can add plant-based sausage, you can add pickled Fresnos, which are like a mildly spicy pepper we pickle. So it kind of meets everyone's needs. So, if they want something that is really dressed up, they can have that. If they want to peel it back a couple layers, they can do that too.
I love it. It has the core at all times, but also people can do these little offshoots, and they can create their own little touch that they like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ed, everyone stop drooling. We're back to the scheduled publication here. So location wise, I mean, you chose core downtown and Fairhaven and kind of being those points. When you were looking for a location, where were you looking? I mean, what was your goal with that? Was it 100% no questions going to be downtown, or was there, what if it could be Berkeley Village, or like what was your process like with finding a location?
I always wanted to be downtown. I didn't really I thought about other locations, and there are some out there. I think there's a market for over near the entrances to Galbraith and up towards the lake. I think there's commercial opportunity there for restaurants, and those neighborhoods are growing, and we're seeing some of that over in the Columbia neighborhoods. Like that's been a cool place to see places popping up. But we want to be in the buzz of it all. We want to be downtown. I think our location is cool because it's right on the outskirts of the main drag there, and so we're like quick access to a lot of those offices and government buildings on the north side of town. And we're also, we're just a block away from Holly Street. We're right there in the thick of it. It's good. I am happy that where we landed. I think of the 3 locations we had, this is by far the strongest location we've had, and we have, like I said, that unique opportunity to build a patio that's in a private lot, and I'm happy to be where we are.
So that space is a really cool space. I'm sure there was a transition period because there was a restaurant there before. How did you how did this information come across your scope? Was it just in a conversation? Did you see it come up for availability? I mean, how did you land that space? It's a really prime piece of Bellingham commercial real estate.
Yeah, the space is cool. It's been a variety of different restaurants over the past, I don't know how long, 20 plus years. And I remember going to the Prospect Street Cafe when I was, 12 years old or something. It's funny to think that that's the space we're in now. And before us was a restaurant called Saltine, and they did a great job, and they were successful. It left the industry for personal reasons. And is that very serendipitous? I saw their listing, and it had been a listing for a long time, like maybe even a year. And it was during the middle of COVID, and no one's really looking to invest in opening a restaurant.
Clam up and shrink, yeah.
Yeah. And so at that same time, we were getting pretty burnt out in the small space we had. I mean, I remember the days where the kitchen was 100 degrees, like back to back to back, because we didn't have a hood system in there, and just doing too much volume for that spot.
Too many burritos.
And I was actually gonna call the Saltine owners that day, and like hours before, it was on my calendar, like call them, and they called me. And we'd never met. And they're like, "Hey, we have no idea if you're looking for a space, but like we just thought we'd put it out there that we're trying to get out of the business, and we haven't had success with our listing." And I was like, "Oh, that's hilarious!" Like I was literally
you're on my calendar.
Yeah, but you're about to call you. And that was a really smooth process. Craig and Val, the previous owners, they made it really easy for me, and we're still in touch a little bit for things that come up. We're able to get the lease transferred and the purchase and sale side of things taken care of quickly, and yeah, it was smooth. One thing that I think about a lot is people think like restaurants just pop up, and they're just like, "Oh, you just opened a restaurant."
That's
and now it's all
literally what people say. "Oh, did you see the new restaurant that popped up?"
Yeah.
And
I remember we signed that lease like over a year before we even opened. Like, it's a long process, and I was trying to manage operating the other 2 locations while building out this new one, and I did all the physical building myself, and so it takes a long time. And as you kind of work through building out that space, you think about the location, how you want to play into that part of the community, and it was nice to have that time to set up and do things intentionally. And yeah, I feel fortunate and just serendipitous that it worked out the way it did.
That's wild timing. So we've talked a lot about the ethos of your business. We've talked about why you do things. You're passionate. You're all passionate. You're creating an amazing product, and you're striving for as close to perfection from an efficiency perspective, the endless chase of perfection. But one of the things that is important to talk about, but also hard to talk about sometimes, is like, you're running a business, and at the end of the day, you're doing it because you want to help your employees thrive. You want to create something great, but you're also, as a business owner, you're looking to make money. It's part of what you do. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that. It's just like, well, but it's a big part of it. and you were clearly, every business owner is profitable right off the bat, right?
Easy.
But tell me about that process for you, from going, I'm investing in my business, to now this is the time where this is the goal, the timeline where it needs to start turning X profit and a little bit more profit. And tell me about that whole experience.
Like I said before, it's a tough industry to pan out financially. It's even tougher when there's constant pressure to just have cost-effective food for customers, and we want to have that experience. We want to be welcoming, but at some point you do have to say, look, this is a business. We need to, make money. We need to have money in profit to put towards growth and to put towards employees and to put towards equipment and all that. And for me, I didn't take money out for probably 3 years, and still pretty much the least amount that I can to with my own personal life. It's a long-term investment. Like, we buy this piece of equipment. It's like, we're not going to make money now, but this equipment's going to encourage efficiency and going to make our quality better. And we're going to, drive sales through that. And so everything that we do is just long-term. Hire managers, like, they're going to make the place better, and it's going to be a short-term loss, but long-term gain. And I think that in the past have been very, very growth-driven, and nearly 100% of profits have gone back into building the business. And now this year is really the first year where I feel like I can say, okay, we're like stable. We've had a great 2023, and we've been able to make smarter investments in equipment, in our patio, and in our staff, and give raises when we can. And now maybe it's time to start looking at, okay, what's my personal financial future look like, and looking into that, and looking into investments outside of the restaurant. So it's a hard balance, because, I want to pay people more. That's the biggest thing, is like, if I could pay employees more, I would. And we have a profit share, which is a really cool thing. And that, I think, encourages like a balance of, when the business does well, employees do well, and so does ownership. And there's that's an important balance to strike, so it's not so one-sided. But yeah, there's just a time where you're like, we're going to invest in growth, and that's a long-term investment. And there's a time where, okay, we're stable, and now we can maybe, I as an owner can put money towards other aspects of life.
Which it's tough, because it's an investment is different than a bank account, right? It's something that you're putting money back into, knowing that it's going to continue to grow. But I think we're very similar in that way, where I've been almost to the point where I have tried to make myself the most impactful as a broker within my side. Not to talk too much about real estate, but also have the least impact on the business from an expense perspective. But at some point you have to start going, okay, this is that jumping point where we can nudge it up a little bit. And I do want to take a little bit more, or you want to. So tell me, like, on one end of the spectrum, you've got the person that doesn't put anything back into the business and takes all the profit. And that's probably not, a business with longevity, or maybe it is because it's a McDonald's style business. And on the other end, you have someone who is like, I'm going to continually invest, maybe even to a fault. So do you have like an internal conversation where you're like, dude, this is that time where everybody else is taken care of. I can take a little bit from the business. Do you have those types of conversations internally?
Definitely. A lot of times people come to me, employees or peers or family, right? Dude, like, you gotta take a vacation, like, get out of here. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. Like, I've worked my ass off to get to this point, and I will continue to, and I put a lot of value into this, and I'm going to take some value out of this. I think it's good times and bad times. When times are good, we'll make smart investments with that cash flow, and also have some in savings, and ownership can take some out of that pool. And when times are not so great, on a slow season, like, that's the time for me to think a little smarter financially. And so it ebbs and flows, and that's a hard thing as a business owner, is like, you don't have necessarily a consistent paycheck. Like, you gotta create a lifestyle that works within that structure. But ultimately, I'm building an asset. Like, I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to sell that asset at any point in time, but I'm working towards a long-term financial future for the business and a long-term financial future for myself. And I think they can play a role together, whilst encouraging, the staff to grow within that model as well. And that's really important to me.
That's really impressive. That's that's a very high level of thinking. And I've met people that are twice our age that have not come to that conclusion. I just think it's a very grounded perspective on it. If you don't mind, I'm gonna get a little personal. You talked about how you created your lifestyle to fit comfortably within the ebb and flow of the business. How do you do that? Like, for people that are listening, that are thinking it's gonna be great, it's gonna be hard work, but I'm gonna make all this money, and I'm gonna buy a Rolls Royce tomorrow. I don't know if that's what people like to buy. Anyways, the whole point is, tell me, how did you craft your lifestyle? Was your life already like that, or were you able to say, this is what actually I can do to live comfortably, and this is all I need to be happy, and obviously if I could have more security, that's great. But how did you craft your lifestyle to fit within the business?
I think I've always lived simply. Like, I don't feel like someone that needs a Rolls Royce, and I don't need a lot. And so that's been a pretty easy transition for me of like, okay, I'm going from, working as an employee and knowing when I get paid and being comfortable with that, to maybe for a few years not taking out any money, or now taking some but not a lot, and sometimes more and sometimes less. And I have a simple lifestyle. I don't feel like I need a lot. But again, I am looking at the future. Like, I know that there will come a time when it's like, okay, maybe I want to buy a house. Maybe I want to live somewhere else. Maybe I want to splurge on these things. And so soon, I think if you ask me this question in a year, I'm confident that I'll have a different answer of like, this is how I am setting up my lifestyle in tandem with the business. Right now, my focus is still more on dialing things in, making sure we're stable, making sure the management structure can run the restaurant to where I don't need to be so involved, and I feel comfortable in the simple lifestyle I currently have.
Don't panic if in 1 year at peak busy time at the restaurant, you're sweating, you're behind the bar helping out, and we come in with a full camera crew, and we're like, all right, Emile, you told us to ask you this question in 1 year. It has officially been 1 year. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. I won't bombard you, but you have this internal voice, this as an entrepreneur that is like, that's guiding you. And you've probably had a lot of great people in your life that, or good and bad, that have taught you how to, talk to yourself. Who do you listen to? Like, who are these people in your life? Because you can't listen to everybody. You can't listen to the Yelp Elite 19 that wanted fried chicken pizza and didn't get it, or they wanted a burrito with no contents, or whatever it is, it's not grilled properly. But who do you listen to? Like, who are these people in your life that you go to for advice, or people that you go to or come to you, and when they tell you something, you go, oh, my ears are open? Who are those people for you?
It's a great question, and it is interesting experience not having a business partner. I think that when I talk to people that have business partners, that's something that I miss out on, is like having that person to lean on emotionally and just with ideas, and they can take some weight off, and you can take some weight off them. And so that is a unique experience for me. And I mean, there's a lot of other people, entrepreneurs that are sole proprietors as well, but that is something that sometimes I think about, like, oh, this would be a different experience if I was in it with someone else. And so for me, it's just being humble and asking people questions. Like, I think one great thing about the Bellingham business community is people are very supportive and they want to be there for each other. And we're all really busy, but you make time for each other. And so there's a handful of people that I'll just shoot a text to, like, hey, can we grab a coffee? Like, I've got some questions about how this is working for you. You've done this a long time. Like, what has worked out? What hasn't? And when I worked in restaurants, I would try and set up a weekly meeting with the owner. Like, I got 500 questions I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Like, and they gave me the time of day, and that was cool too. So I've had mentors throughout my working experience as an employee at restaurants, and then now I think it's leveraging the business community we have here in Bellingham, and not being afraid to ask silly questions. Just, everyone goes through it, and everyone started somewhere, and there's a lot of really smart and really successful business-minded people in Bellingham that it's been cool to feel comfortable reaching out to them.
It does seem like it's because it's a small business core community, whether it's restaurants or just businesses under a certain size in Bellingham, it does seem like there's an openness to, you're going to be successful either way, or you're not. And so am I. And here's what we do. And you're either going to do it or you're not. And do you feel like there's been anybody in particular that you've had a great relationship with as you've started the business?
A lot of people come to mind. Yeah, I think businesses large and small, and that's been one thing I feel proud of at Banter, is trying to incorporate elements of other industries that have done well and brought them into the restaurant. And so I try and spread my net kind of wide in that business community of like, okay, this person works in a totally different industry, but they probably know something that I don't, having only had worked in restaurants. And so just, yeah, trying to meet new people, work on those relationships, and incorporate elements from everyone's life and work experience and bring them back into my own.
This is kind of a random question, but
Sure.
you said you don't really go out that often. You probably cook a lot from home because that's what you're really good at, and you know all of the good tastes and all what you have this high standard of what food should taste like. That doesn't mean that it's all bougie. I'm just saying you know what you like. But when you go out, like if you're like, I'm gonna go out and have a great Bellingham experience, where do you go? Like what's your night on the town, you know, getting after it?
Oh, that's a hard question, Leo. Not because there's not good restaurants, but I will tell you, anyone listening that wants to open a restaurant, it will ruin going out to eat for you. Like you will obsess over the little details, and you'll, I'm a very observational person. Like I walk in a room and I just notice things immediately. And
Like our interrogation lights,
like the interrogation lights.
60 minutes. Yeah. Trying to make it feel like 60 minutes, you know? Yeah. You're not sweating yet. I'm not succeeding at this yet.
It's very tasteful
Yeah,
in here. I
yeah,
like it. I'm comfortable.
Thanks, Tiffany.
And so I would preface it by saying that, like, when I got to eat with someone, people ask me like directly, like, what do you think? Like, what are you noticing? And it is a fun experience. Like it's fun to think about those things, but it is hard to just go out and eat and not think about it from a restaurateur's perspective. It's a little bit of a different type of experience and different type of feedback. But when I go out, I gotta give kudos Cafe Blue, Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, they just have a really, really special, I don't know if there's many places in the world that are like them, that have that same like open friendliness and just warming heart. Their food is great and their product's good, but just the heart and soul of that place is really something special. So I would highly recommend going there. Our neighbors across the alley that just opened up, Red Light, it's a beautiful space.
Beautiful space.
The energy in there, like the vibe is just, it's always dialed. That's what I love about that place, is you walk in and like, you know exactly what you're going to get, and it's just a fun, moody experience. Like the food's great, the cocktails are fantastic, but the vibe in there is, we don't have a lot of places like that in Bellingham. It sucks when restaurants close. Obviously, it's a loss to the community sometimes. It's unfortunate for the entrepreneur. Maybe something bad happened that wasn't out of someone's control, but I am excited for Bellingham's restaurant scene to keep growing. And when one place closes, I'm always like, oh, this is a cool opportunity for someone to step in there and do something that is fresh and innovative. And Bellingham's growing in the right direction, I feel, in that way. And I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm excited to keep experiencing that as a customer as well. So.
Yeah, one thing that I think you can probably agree with me, but the $5 pitchers and pizza at the Up, what I felt at the time was like the biggest loss of all time. And then Cardinal came in, and it's awesome too. So
totally.
So just I hear what you're saying. You think like with death there's rebirth, right?
Absolutely.
So what do you, I mean, you talked about this, the future of Bellingham, like you're on the front lines of this with other restaurateurs and business owners. What are you seeing happening? Because I'm seeing all these restaurants pop up, so to speak. And I mean, what, not pop up, they, it's a process. We know that they don't just pop up. But what are you seeing for the future of Bellingham? Like what are some of your perceptions of the good stuff that is going to happen, or hard stuff?
Yeah. I don't know. It's no one really knows the future. It's funny, I grew up here and my folks still live here, and they talk about, 30 years ago this was so much different. There was no traffic, and I'm like, man, have you ever lived in like a city at all?
That dang strip that by sunset, I can't believe I waited 10 minutes instead of 5.
Yeah. But I'm excited about Bellingham's growth. I think that it's already present, but it's just going to keep developing as the waterfront is going to bring a lot of life, and that's going to change the scene a lot, both residential and commercial and park, and that's a cool system that's going on there. And in terms of food and restaurants, I think that we're just going to keep pushing the limits a little bit. There's competition is a good thing in restaurants. We build each other up, but we make each other better. And people have a decision to make when they go out to eat. And I think that the more you're kind of pushed to make the experience better, just the better everyone becomes at whole. So future Bellingham, hard to say. I know that we're on the right trajectory. And I think that as more young, driven people come here, they will build that entrepreneurial community even more. And we already are living in a great place, and I think it's just going to keep getting better.
What's the future of Banter?
Oh,
You guys building up?
even harder question.
Second story.
Second story, yeah.
Yeah, fried chicken and pizza upstairs. Yeah. Tiffany's probably going to get annoyed when she's listening to the editing of this. She's like, oh God, he's said the same thing 5 times. Yeah.
I, as an entrepreneur-minded person, there's ideas just always floating around. Like, we could do this, we could try this. Oh, this is a great concept. This is something even unrelated to Banter, and some of those may come to fruition. It's hard to say, but right now the core focus is making sure our systems run well, and making sure our staff are taken care of, and making sure that staff have the opportunity to grow with the company. And within that, I can delegate further and I can step away further. And I think at some point I'm interested in learning something else entirely. I haven't not even close to maximizing what I can learn about a restaurant, but I think it's certainly getting to the point where I'm like, let me try to dip my toes in a different industry here and like see if I enjoy that. And so personally, I'm excited to keep Banter stable and keep it moving forward in a slow and steady way and encouraging employee growth. And for me to be able to work on other aspects of my entrepreneurial journey and kind of see where that takes me.
Yeah. It's looking forward and thinking about yourself at 21 years old, and you're now an old man.
Yep.
With a broken toe, can't never walk again. What kind of advice would you shout back at yourself or tell somebody that is in that position, or maybe they're same age as you or a little bit older and they're starting out a business? What is some advice that you would pass along to that young entrepreneur or that new entrepreneur?
I think about that all the time. People do come to me a lot, which is great. And
besides, don't do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Don't do it.
Well,
do it.
Like not every mentor I had, but 90% of them, that was their advice. Like, don't do this. This is crazy. Like, getting into this restaurant world is just crazy. And it is. But I don't regret doing it at all. And I understand their advice now. But I think that there's a type of person that it's meant for, and there's a type of person that's not. And I think that my advice would be, think about why you're doing this. Like, is this internally driven? Is this something you are really strongly passionate about, and you know that you can push through really hard times? Or are you someone who, like, this is something that I think would look cool, and like, I can imagine, saying I'm the owner of this place. Like, they're two totally different things. And then the kind of the third bucket in that is people come a lot and they say, like, I want to open a restaurant because I love to cook, or like, I'm really passionate about cocktails. So like, I want to open a cocktail bar. And that's just a small portion of running a business. Like, do you want to be a business owner, or do you want to be a head chef of a place? And so I think my advice to any person, young or old, would be, think about why you're doing this, and ultimately what you want your position to be and what your responsibilities are, and find a kind of a career path that meets that. Because if you want to cook food, that's so much different than running a restaurant, and there are great opportunities to go cook amazing food and be creative, and there are chef opportunities all over the world to do that. Running a business is just, their world's different. So yeah, just think about your intention, and if you think, if your intention is to be a business owner and you're ready to struggle and you're ready to learn and to be humble, like, you just have to do it. You're never going to be 100% ready.
Just commit.
Yeah. No one, no matter how old you are, is going to be 100% ready to do it.
Well, in fact, most people do only see the success, the outside of it, and they just don't see the other part of it. And the other part of it makes the other part worth it. It's like,
right.
each side makes the other side worth it. Right. you struggle a bunch and then you have even a little win. Like you figured out to crisp those burritos, and it was probably a big win that day, right? No, you've always been crisping your burritos, I'm sure, your whole life. Just classy man. So one thing I want to throw out there, and for those that are listening to this podcast and have not been to Banter, you need to go regularly, whether it's for breakfast, I like breakfast for dinner. And so that's also an option. Awesome matcha avo shake that I get regularly, the peanut bowl, the breakfast, all of it's awesome. If you haven't gone, you guys need to go. If you don't know where it is, you probably have a phone. You can Google it, or you can message us and I can send you a Google link to where it is on a map. But for those that are listening, if you message the Building Bellingham Instagram and you say, banter me, and Tiff, so creative, I will meet you there and I will buy you a burrito or the meal and drink of your choice.
Hey everyone, producer Tiffany here. This episode was recorded in October of 2023, and so this offer of lunch or drinks with Leo at Banter is good until January 15, 2024.
I think it's probably Brandon and Samir and Eric. Anyways, I'd love to take the listeners that are listening to this. If you have not had the experience yet, let's go. I'll meet you there. Message us. Emile, any final words about your journey, anything that we missed out on in this conversation?
Ooh, we talked about a lot.
It
was a good conversation. And there's so much to running a business. It really is a multi-dimensional job. And it's hard, and it's fascinating, and it's fun. And I think we just generally, the last thing I would say is to appreciate the small businesses in this town. And when you go out, whether it's to eat or going shopping or you're using local accounting services, whatever it is to understand that there's a lot of cost involved and that the prices you're paying are supporting, a local team, and just to be appreciative of the efforts that have gone into the experience that you're having as a customer, especially in a town like this where we have a lot of really cool, passionate people doing cool things.
Emile, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
This is episode 2.
Building Bellingham is a community podcast exploring leadership, challenges, failure, and mindset with entrepreneurs right here in Whatcom County, Washington. You can be the first to hear about upcoming guests by subscribing to the Building Bellingham Facebook or Instagram pages, as well as the Building Bellingham YouTube channel. This episode was produced and edited by Tiffany Holden. Our videography is done by Cooper Hansley. Community projects are by Taylor Beal. To learn more about the team behind the podcast and to download our media kit, check out our website at www.livebellinghamnow.com or search Cohen Group NW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. From the whole Building Bellingham podcast team, thank you for listening.